Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Bull Take Scouting Podcast. Week 1 of the NFL season is in the books, and what a week it was. We had several thrilling finishes, a lot of surprises, a lot of great performance, and we'll be highlighting the best rookies across the league this week. But first, Alex, it was really a lot of unexpected results. What team really stood out to you and surprised you this week?
So I have two. One is the Giants beating the Titans. They came back from being behind. They won basically with that 2-point conversion. I don't really think anyone expected the Giants to win this game. And the other one is the Vikings. They just handled the Packers. Their offense looked great. Justin Jefferson was a star of the show. Kirk Cousins played really well. I think we could see some big things from the Vikings this year.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's going to be interesting to see whether or not they can really contend for the division title. I don't think the Packers are going to struggle as much as they did in week 1. If you recall, last year they got blown out by the Saints in week 1, and then they really turned it around. It seems like it might be, that type of thing for the Packers again, but they do need to solve out their passing offense and really who is Rodgers going to rely on in the passing game. I do like both of your shouts though for the Vikings and the Giants. Definitely good. And you love to see Saquon Barkley fully healthy, ripping up opposing defenses to shreds. Really good to see him back.
Yeah, it is. I mean, people kind of didn't agree with that pick, second overall, taking a running back that high. And, after the past 2 years that he's had, it makes a lot of sense. Injuries wasn't super effective. So really hoping this year he can turn it around and show us the player that, he has the potential to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Let's hop right into all these rookies that we have to talk about. We'll start off impressive offensive performances. So Kosta, I'll let you start this off with naming a few guys and talking about them.
Yeah, I'm going to go Jahan Dotson for the Commanders. He had 3 catches for 40 yards and 2 touchdowns. And, the 40 yards might not be that much, but those 2 touchdowns were one really crucial to win that game. One of them was the game winner in the fourth quarter. And they were also just, really impressive and a great showcase of the abilities that he's bringing to that offense. I mean, the first one, he's showing the ability to have good body control, turn back, secure the ball through contact, tap his toes down in the back of the end zone. That was really impressive. And then the second one, you see him, track the ball really well, adjust to it with the defender right there on him. Really, really good stuff from Jahan Dotson. People were skeptical about him being picked that high. We had him graded really right in the range where he was picked. Thought he was even, a better prospect than Chris Olave. And I think he's really proving us right. I mean, and maybe not necessarily in regards to Chris Olave, that we could put that debate aside, but just in terms of his ability to have an immediate impact in the NFL, he really played a big part in Washington beating the Jaguars.
Yeah, totally. And he was named our week 1 offensive rookie of the week. And, that was well deserving. I don't think there were any like massive standout offensive performances. I mean, Dotson 2 touchdowns, impressive, but 40 yards, nothing to balk at. Drake London, who I'm pretty sure led all rookie wide receivers in receiving yards in week 1 for the Falcons, had 5 receptions for 74 yards. And he was pretty much the leading receiver on that Falcons team with Marcus Mariota at quarterback. And I think it's really impressive. Obviously, we had him graded as a high receiver. You were even higher on him than I was. But to me, it's really impressive because he's been dealing with some injuries in the preseason. We were concerned maybe he wasn't going to be able to get going in week 1. Might take a few weeks to heal and just get ready to go with that offense. But he clearly was ready to go in week 1. With those 74 receiving yards. I think we see, his ability to create some separation with routes. I saw that a couple times on a few of his receptions. And obviously we see his athletic ability and his contested catch ability on display. And I'd expect him to be either the leading receiver for the Falcons or second on that team in receiving yards because they don't have a ton of talent in the wide receiver room. And he's obviously a very talented player.
Yeah, absolutely. He's kind of in that new mold of receivers that they are jump ball guys. They're big, they can go up and get it, but they still are athletic enough and good enough at route running to get some separation, kind of like T. Higgins, kind of like Michael Pittman. And I do expect him to remain really the focal point of that offense alongside Kyle Pitts, who I think will pick it up after, kind of a disappointing first week. I want to highlight another rookie wide receiver who's really flown under the radar after his stellar performance on Sunday, and that's Kyle Phillips for the Titans. He had 6 catches for 66 yards, and this was in 25 snaps. He was targeted 10 times on 25 snaps, which is an amazing target share for a rookie. On top of those 6 catches, he was also he had drew 2 penalties. So he had a really big impact for the Titans. He's a guy who I was really high on because he might not be the biggest, might not be the fastest, but he was really one of the best route runners in this draft class, just someone you can rely on to consistently get open. And he's already translating that to the NFL level.
Yeah, and another rookie or offensive rookie that impressed me, Isaiah Pacheco, the running back for the Kansas City Chiefs. He was a 7th round draft pick, and he is the backup running back for the Chiefs, but he's definitely staking a claim into some more offensive touches for the Chiefs offense. He had 12 carries for 62 yards. Great week 1 performance from him. I don't think anyone was really expecting much, but just a great game 1 to get your foot in the door and, really solidify that backup running back spot for the Chiefs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think right now he's probably still 3rd in line behind Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Jerick McKinnon, but to even be 3rd in line and get 12 carries in that type of a game is really impressive. I mean, there's a guy named Ronald Jones who was inactive because of Pacheco. Jones is the guy that we've seen get touches in games very often in his career. He's been productive in stretches, and he couldn't even, dress for the game because Pacheco was preferred by the coaching staff as a 7th round rookie. So that really speaks to how much Pacheco has impressed the Chiefs coaching staff this offseason. And I really think they will keep using him in that offense. And I want to, lastly on offense, highlight a couple offensive linemen who both allowed no pressures on a good amount of pass protection snaps. And one of them being Spencer Burford for the San Francisco 49ers. In his first game ever at right guard on 36 pass protection snaps, he did not allow a single sack or a single pressure. And Dylan Parham for the Raiders was the highest graded PFF offensive lineman among the rookies. And on 26 snaps, he did not allow any pressure. So both of them really impressed me. I didn't get to scout Parham or Burford in the draft process, but Parham is a guy that I really liked, had an early 3rd round grade on, thought he could really start immediately. And I think he might be already taking that starting role from here on out.
Yeah, I think it's really notable that week 1 we're mentioning possibly the 2 best offensive line rookie performances were from mid-round guys.
Yeah.
Not guys taken in the 1st or 2nd round, guys, day 2. I think Burford was the start of day 3.
Yeah.
If that's correct. So, day 3 or day 2, day 3 guys making the biggest impact as rookie offensive linemen.
Absolutely. On that note, what did you think of the performances of the 1st round offensive tackles, that being Ike Ekwonu, Evan Neal, and Charles Cross?
I think they all struggled. I think Evan Neal probably performed the best out of those 3. I think he allowed 2 pressures, no sacks. But Charles Cross and Ike Ekwonu both allowed 4 pressures and 2 sacks each. Ike Ekwonu, I understand he was playing against Myles Garrett, probably one of the best, if not the best, pass rusher in the NFL. So it's understandable that he's going to give up some sacks, but just not a great first performance for Icky. And Charles Cross, he's not playing against Myles Garrett, but 4 pressures and 2 sacks given up against the Denver Broncos. Not a great way to start off. I'm not worried. Usually we see a decent learning curve for rookie left or right tackles. I know we got lucky last year with Penei Sewell and Rashawn Slater. They kind of day 1 were ready to go. Slater was a Pro Bowl caliber talent, but I think most of the time we see some learning curves for these rookie offensive tackles. So I'm not concerned. Just a disappointing start.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. I think might also highlight that, Ekwonu was more of a raw prospect in pass protection than people were really realizing. They love the traits. They love the nasty temperament on the field where he's going to, do his best to pancake guys, maul guys. But there was, a lot of work to be done in terms of his technique and pass protection. That kind of showed on Sunday. So let's move to the defensive side of the ball. I think there were a lot more standouts among the rookie class on defense than on offense. And that's going to start with the first overall pick, who we named our defensive rookie of the week, Travon Walker. Man, he had 4 tackles, a sack, and an interception. And if you just take those 2 plays, the sack and the interception, they're jaw dropping. And the sack especially I want to highlight because he dips right under his blocker, right around the edge, shows bend that I really never saw on his college tape. And that, I think, that has already made me realize, I might end up missing on Travon Walker because, I wasn't super low on him, but I had a mid first round grade and he did go first overall and, had the best week of any rookie, in my opinion. I think a lot of that was because of how Georgia used him. And that's something that I didn't take into account enough. Clearly, he has the bend to get around the blocker's outside shoulder and attack the quarterback off the edge, but they were rarely asking him to do that. So I kind of deduced that he didn't have that ability. I think I might have been wrong there.
Yeah, I think we both might have been wrong. And throughout the draft process, there were people saying, "Oh, don't worry, he has it. Georgia just never asked him to use it." But it didn't make sense. If this guy's going to be the first overall pick, why don't you ask him to do what he's best at? And I think watching Georgia play this year, and Georgia might, we're 2 weeks in, but Georgia might look better than they did last year. I mean, you see the amount of talent that Georgia has on that defense, especially. And I think it kind of makes you realize and I know people said this, so I'm not making any, bold takes right now, but they had so much talent that they didn't really need him to do what he was best at.
Yeah, I mean, they won a national championship.
They did. And that defensive line now, especially with Jalen Carter in the middle, I mean, very impressive. I heard people say, they didn't make him do it because they had all this talent, but in my head, it doesn't make sense. If he's this good of a player, why didn't you make him do it? There definitely were some flashes on tape of his athletic ability. But it might have been a little bit of stubbornness, just wanting to stick with my guns and say, no, that if he's not showing it on tape, he can't do it. But yeah, I think, Walker might be a guy that we're already week 1 saying, yeah, we might have missed a little bit on tape, but that happens in the scouting world. And it's always important to admit your mistakes and be able to recognize where you went wrong and why you were wrong.
Yeah, I think that you're right. It's a scouting lesson for sure to take out of that one. I mean, it's also 1 week. We don't know how he's going to turn out, but it's definitely a very strong start for him. That makes me think a little bit about Jordan Davis because it was kind of the same situation where we were a bit skeptical about the pass rush ability because he never showed it. But for that one, we really did know that, they were taking him off the field because they had Jalen Carter and Devontae Wyatt pass rushing from the interior. Do you think that over the course of the season, or maybe, a year or 2 into his career, he's going to show tremendous pass rush ability and we're going to be like, yeah, we should have given him even more benefit of the doubt than we did?
Well, in all honesty, I've always thought that he had some pass rush ability.
Yeah.
I thought before the combine, I had mentioned that, and I think it was our playoff preview. I mentioned that I did see some pass rush potential in him. My biggest issue with grading him was he's not on the field for a lot of plays. And we saw guys cycle in and out, but he was on the field for less than everyone else.
Yeah.
And I think we did see that in week 1. He was extremely impressive. The Eagles allowed 2.9 yards per carry in the rushing game when he was on the field. And I think it was 10 yards per carry when he wasn't on the field. So that is a massive, massive difference. But he was only on the field for 22 plays. And I think that was my biggest concern. If you're taking a guy high in the first round, you want him to be on the field for at least more than 50% of snaps. And 22 plays is not that. I understand that he's a large human being. It takes a lot of energy to play football that big. And I understand there'll be some limitations, but, I feel like his pass rush will get better, but I'm just not sure how much pass rushing he will do because of, how limited he might be in snap count.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you. It is concerning to see that despite having such a big impact in the run game, he was only on the field that little. It seems like maybe the thoughts that conditioning could be an issue for him were kind of true. It wasn't just him being taken off the field because they had better. There might have been, some of that underlying reason. And I'm intrigued to see how that his play count or snap count develops over the season because it definitely is an interesting storyline. And to get back to the top defensive performers, I want to highlight another one of these mid to late rounders, Dominique Robinson for the Chicago Bears. He was really incredible. He had 7 tackles and 1.5 sacks. This too being on limited snaps, but he certainly made the most of it. And that first sack was an incredible hand move against Mike McGlinchey. And if you go back to the tape that he produced in college, it was often if he doesn't win immediately with his athleticism and his physical traits, it's over for him. And in one offseason, it looks like he's really improved his ability to use his hands. And we also saw him get notched that half a sack later against Trent Williams. And that was really crucial for the Bears to win the game. So that, they've got to be excited what they have there.
Yeah, I think we're kind of seeing a theme here with, some players coming in from college, and even that first off season with NFL caliber coaches can really make a huge difference. Obviously we saw that with Dominique Robinson showing improved, pass rush moves, hand fighting technique after being drafted by the Bears. Let's talk about a couple defensive backs that all had really good days, starting off with Sauce Gardner for the Jets. Obviously, the Jets had a tough loss, let up 24 points on defense. Gardner allowed 1 catch for 8 yards on 34 covered snaps. I mean, we said it. The preseason, he did not even allow a catch. Week 1, obviously, they weren't playing the best passing offense in the league, but he was up against one of the best tight ends in the league, and he allowed, again, 1 catch for 8 yards. He had a great pass breakup in the end zone covering Mark Andrews. So not really much to say there because not much really happened besides Sauce shutting down the receivers he was covering.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was, really impressive too to see him trailing Mark Andrews on some of these third downs because, just when you thought that he was as NFL ready as he could possibly be, we put him second in our, preseason predictions for defensive rookie of the year. He might go on and actually win that. You've got a guy who's in his first game ever in the NFL, and he's covering one of the top 3 tight ends in the league. And so that it is also very valuable to have that asset because some of these tight ends are real mismatches where you put a safety on them, the safety's too small. You put a linebacker on them, the linebacker's not fast enough. And there are very few cornerbacks who can fit the bill to cover these tight ends. And it looks like, that might be an extra piece of versatility that you get from Sauce Gardner that we didn't really think about until now. So, the sky's the limit for Sauce Gardner. I also want to highlight another rookie cornerback who actually allowed even less yardage than Sauce, and that's Roger McCreary, who allowed 1 catch for 5 yards on 28 coverage snaps. We highlighted him in the rookie season preview, noting how he won that starting job for Tennessee and how he's a guy that, we liked. He's got short arms, but so technically refined. He's athletic, he's smart, and he just showed all of that in a really impressive week 1 performance.
Yeah. And then the third cornerback that I want to talk about, I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Is it Kader Kohu, the cornerback for Miami Dolphins? He didn't have a ton of snaps, but he had 3 solo tackles, a forced fumble, and then he was the only rookie with a PFF grade above 90. And he had that forced fumble against the Patriots, and I'm pretty sure that forced fumble kind of sealed the deal for the Dolphins. I mean, he was an undrafted rookie. I had not even heard of him before week 1, but he really, made his presence known with the injury to, I think Byron Jones was injured.
Yeah, there's so little shot for a guy of his status to even make the team. I mean, he was a Division II player out of Texas A&M Commerce, just making the practice squad, making the 53-man roster. These were extreme long shots for him. For every Kohu, there's a couple hundred guys who will not even sniff an NFL field. So props to him for earning that opportunity and then for taking that opportunity and running with it, because he really had a great impact for the Dolphins, contributed to that win. That forced fumble was the last time the Patriots touched the ball that game. The Patriots were driving down the field to try to get the game back in reach. They weren't able to do that because Kohu stopped them right in their tracks. Who was inactive because of Kohu being active for that game was first-round pick Noah Igbenogany. And to really beat out a player with that status, because as much as you want to believe that once they're in the NFL, everyone's an equal footing, the draft stock that was invested in these players really carries a lot. And it's so hard to make it as an undrafted rookie. For him to beat out a guy who was drafted in the first round by this regime and then play the way he did. And he's got an awesome backstory too. He immigrated from Africa pretty young, fell in love with football. Props to him. He's really just the great story of the week.
Yeah, he really is. And he was drafted by the GM, not the head coach. So just a quick note there. But I mean, the GM's still there. It's hard for guys. He was drafted in 2019. He's still in his rookie contract, like you said. So really impressive for Kohu to get the active roster spot over Igbenogany.
Yeah, 2020, but yeah, definitely.
And one safety that really jumped off the screen, Jaquan Brisker, another Bears defender. He had 4 tackles and a forced fumble in that rain game against the 49ers, where the Bears defense really shut down that 49ers offense. We know, obviously, they had Trey Lance with his 2022 debut. And we know Kyle Shanahan, the offensive genius that he is, holding the 49ers to 10 points. I know it was in the rain, awful conditions, but still, they're a rushing attack offense. So the fact that the Bears held them to 10 points is really impressive. And, Brisker was definitely a part of that, as well as Dominique Robinson.
Absolutely. So now, we highlighted a lot of these top performers. Are there any rookies that, you expected more out of and disappointed you this week?
Yeah, so we mentioned the first-round offensive linemen. I don't think we need to get into them again. Christian Watson, the Packers wide receiver, who was picked high in the second round. We mentioned in our rookie preview that he had been kind of pushed down on the depth chart. Romeo Doubs was ahead of him, and I think we kind of saw why. He had 2 receptions for 34 yards, but the biggest play of the day, you could say, was his wide-open touchdown that he just dropped. It went right through his hands. There is no excuse for it, and just really unfortunate. And we saw those drops on occasion in college. That was probably my biggest red flag for him. And honestly, I was surprised that he was on the field to be able to have that drop, because it didn't seem like Aaron Rodgers had a lot of faith in any of his rookie wide receivers. And we know he was, I think, the 4th or 5th wide receiver on that depth chart. So I think he might be in the doghouse for a little bit, unfortunately.
Yeah, Rodgers' doghouse even as much as the head coaches, because Rodgers really was harping on these rookies, as you alluded to, saying that they can't be dropping balls, and that really was going to be a walk-in touchdown for Watson. I'm not surprised that he's struggling early, because as great as his traits are, and he has the ceiling of a true Pro Bowl caliber wide receiver in this league, he was a raw player who played at the FCS level. I really didn't expect him to make much of an impact in year one. He's been thrust onto the field because of the lack of depth and quality in that wide receiver room. But, they might have to find solutions outside of him. Maybe the veterans in that receiver room need to step up. Maybe Dubs is going to really get to break out. But Rodgers is going to need to find solutions. The Packers are going to need to find solutions. And I think that wide receiver room is, a really interesting one to follow. I'm going to go with Breece Hall as someone that disappointed me. I've had high expectations for Breece Hall heading into this season. He was my pick for offensive rookie of the year. I didn't expect him to get out carried by almost double by Michael Carter. Carter had 10 carries. Hall had 6 because I thought that, Carter profile as well as a change of pace back, while Hall has the profile to carry a bigger workload. I thought he was a really well-rounded back who could shine in his rookie year. I like what he did through the air with 6 receptions for 38 yards. But he only got 6 carries for 23 yards. That's just not what I expected in terms of workload and production from him. And that fumble is definitely not going to help him. You cannot fumble in your first game as a rookie. That's just going to set you back in terms of the amount of work you're getting. That's James Cook is going to see the same problem, because as much as I thought that he would get more and more work as the season goes on and potentially even become the RB1 in Buffalo, I think that's the fumble he had is really going to set him back too.
Yeah, I don't remember really seeing him on the field after that fumble, which is really unfortunate because the Bills could really use a really good running back. But I think in the Bills situation, they're Super Bowl contenders, possibly the best team in the NFL at the moment. You can't risk it with putting a running back that, fumbled on his – was it his first touch?
It was his first touch.
Yeah, it's too big of a risk for the Bills to take. Breece Hall, I don't think, had any fumbles his senior season in college.
I think he had one. He had one at the goal line in about midseason.
Maybe one. So that was a little bit of a surprise for me to see him fumble his first game.
Yeah. So I think one last good discussion point here would be which rookies were pretty quiet, didn't really make any headlines with their performances, but you still think are going to have great rookie years.
Number one, I think Garrett Wilson for the Jets. I think he only had 52 yards. He had Joe Flacco as his quarterback, which did not help. But you did see when he had the ball in his hands, he really showed his athleticism, his ability to change direction, stop and start on a dime, and make guys miss. There was a highlight that I saw where it was about a 15-yard catch, but I think he made 3 defenders miss tackles. So I think he's going to be really good, especially once Zach Wilson gets back in at quarterback. I think he'll be able to get him the ball deep, and I think Garrett Wilson will have a good season.
Yeah, I'll put Treylon Burks in that same category. He had, just about the same amount of yards, a bit over 50 yards, which is pretty good, for your first NFL performance. But I think just like Wilson, he's going to have a really good season. He's just going to get better and better, see more and more action on the field. We saw that Tannehill's willing to trust these rookie receivers the way he trusted Phillips and Burks and gave relatively little work to Bobby Woods. So I think that we're going to see a lot of Burks in that offense. And another receiver that I want to highlight is Wan'Dale Robinson. He had a catch for 5 yards before leaving with a knee injury after only playing 9 snaps. And what was really notable for me was even after Robinson left the game, Kadarius Toney barely played. I think he had a couple rushes, but no receptions. And that shows me that they're not happy with Toney, and Robinson's going to get really every chance that he can get to star in this offense and have a good role out of the slot. So I think that this injury doesn't seem to be serious. He'll be back on the field quickly, and I think he could have a good rookie year.
Yeah, and we mentioned that after the draft when Robinson was drafted. We thought that, Toney might be on his way out. I'm surprised they didn't even have Toney in the game a little bit just to try to get somebody interested in trade for him.
Yeah.
But it just really seems like to me they want to be done with Kadarius Toney. On the defensive side of the ball, I think Aiden Hutchinson disappointed me a little bit. 1 tackle. The Lions' defensive line did look good against the Eagles at times. They got some pressure on Jalen Hurts. I don't think Hutchinson didn't get his name. He only had 1 tackle, not because he played poorly, just because he was probably the most focused on along the Lions' defensive line. But, he was the first overall player on my board. I 100% expect him to start getting some sacks, more tackles, just a matter of time for him.
I bet he's in the film room as we speak, breaking that down and working exactly on how to improve in his second outing. And, I wouldn't be surprised that if he has a really good game against the Commanders this weekend and goes on to have a great rookie year.
Yeah, I agree. I think that wraps us up for this week 1 rookie review. There was a lot to talk about. Honestly, more than last year, I feel like, between, a wild week 1 in the NFL, some teams winning that completely unexpected. The Seahawks last night, I did not expect that with Nathaniel Hackett's decision to kick the field goal and the timeout situation. A tough situation there, but we're in for a really exciting NFL season. It'll be interesting to see how these rookies develop, who really keeps their name in the Rookie of the Year conversation week after week. And yeah, that wraps up this podcast. Thanks everyone for watching, for listening, and we'll be back with another episode soon.